Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Feel like I'm kind of crashing the Monday morning parties because I'm usually not a Monday morning facilitator. But if you do not know who I am Katie Gideon, and I'm dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. And I am so excited to be doing the kind of final January into the weird week that is January/February for the social. But so good to see everyone. I love seeing all of the returning socialers, but also seeing some new names out there. So if this is your first social or your first setup social, or maybe a first kind of Monday morning social, go ahead and throw into the chat if you are new here. Because we always like to welcome our new folks. And then I'm also thrilled to be sharing the social with my amazing co-facilitator, Jennifer O, who will be in the chat. And again, if you are new, we used to be Team Texas, but still Team Texas because I relocated from there. But super excited to be joining everyone for this Monday morning social. And so again, if you are new, make sure if you want to share in the chat for the entire Sonder fam, make sure that it is set to everyone. If you just have it to host and panelists, only myself and Jennifer can see those, but we will be able to provide those responses there. You can also use the Q&A feature down at the bottom. And again, the kind of last week of 1 month into a new month, do not worry. We will be using pages from the January journal, or if you don't have the January journal and only have the February journal, we will be using, you can use those pages as well. We will be prompting for both. And then also, if you don't have any of your journals yet, don't worry, you can use Post-it notes to take some notes, and you can always revisit these socials when you get your journal. But we are so glad that everyone is here, so glad everyone is joining us. And as a reminder for these socials, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Please limit repetitive product and accessory questions. Those are always great for the Silk and Sonder app. And then you can always ask myself and Jennifer some customer care inquiries, but most of them we will redirect to hello@silkandsonder.com, because while we have some information, we usually do not have everything. And then Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you are ready to be done with January, then you can move into your February journal. If you still want to dabble in that theme, we have a couple of other things that we can kind of chat about under the theme of ambition. And then as always, if you are new here, I thought there was some really great advice in the app with the, it can be a little overwhelming. It can be a really kind of tricky, where do I start? Where do I do it? A couple of things to remember is that there are no right or wrong ways to journal, and no one is going to be here to grade you. And then as always, you can start with the sections that you get excited about. I know I started my Silk and Sonder journey because I was excited about all of the trackers, but stayed for the kind of deep dive creative components about it. So with that being said, kind of with this month of ambition, like I said, I know with a lot of the themes, you either are like all about it, find some kind of real deep discovery, or you're like, I am going to leave it. I can't connect to it. I don't quite understand it, or it's something that I'm just not kind of interested in exploring on kind of whatever self-care journey you are on. I feel like as we kind of went about it, when I start at the beginning of the month, ambition, kind of a dirty word, seen as kind of being like overly ambitious, or ambitious without being kind of the emotional connection to it. But then what I think, as I kind of navigated through it, not only with the conversations that I've had with you guys, but ambition is adaptable. And that is, ambition is going to look different for different milestones in different stages of your life. The teenager Katie had a very different set of ambitions. The 20-something Katie obviously had very different sets of ambitions. The 30-something Katie has settled into those ambitions. And kind of as you work through those kind of pieces. So what I feel like my journey led me to is that ambition is adaptable, and therefore it becomes a little bit more functionable as well as achievable, so that I can start kind of grasping it a little bit more, instead of one of those kind of like kind of core value words that just kind of didn't apply and just lived in the kind of outer realm of where I wanted to exist. So ambition is adaptable. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is the ambition mind map. Do not worry if you have the 4-week ambition mind map for January. We are not messing with that. We are not adding to that. This is going to be a standalone bonus prompt because, like we said, weird week because it's partially in January, partially in February. So we're not setting up the mind map for February yet. That will be the next one. And if you have really no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to the mind maps, do not worry. The mind maps are unique to the weekly setups, and it's an opportunity for us at the start of the exercise to kind of take a little bit deeper dive into the theme. So if you show up late or miss a weekly mind map prompt, do not worry. Usually they're asked about in the app, and those are kind of provided there, but we also provide the previous week's mind maps as we go. But like I said, we're not doing a mind map for January. We're not closing it out. And we're not setting up the new one for February. We just have a really nice bonus mind map prompt. So with that being said, the bonus mind map prompt is you can turn to a blank page in your journal or a blank section because these mind maps are not published in the journal. And Jennifer did just put in the chat the previous weeks if you are interested in kind of deep diving with the mind map or maybe missed one of the January prompts. But we're starting with the reflect on your younger self's ambition. Do they guide your path today? How have they changed or stayed the same? And are there personal qualities you could cultivate to bring your future closer to these hopes? And so here's where I did it. My example, I put on page 49 in the January journal, just on the scratch pad. And as always, you can return to the theme of ambition or its synonyms for this. Maybe it's motivation, aspiration, kind of those things. And then remember that there is no number associated with your younger self. This could be kind of any time in your past, or maybe it's a kind of idea that, future yourself wants to explore, that you can kind of start working on that now, so that future self will look back as kind of a younger component to your ambition. And then, as always, you don't need to focus on the goal-making part of ambition. You can just think in terms of when did you take a proactive action? Because I feel like that's another one of those ambition and goal orientation kind of goes hand in hand, but I don't think that's always true. And then, as always, you can choose to focus just on the changes that you've made or the qualities that you want to continue to focus on as we move from month to month or kind of finishing out the first month of 2024. And what kind of momentum can we turn into kind of tangible items that we can then focus on into weekly major goals, weekly habits, weekly activities, as well as weekly to-dos. So again, we are working on this mind map prompt. Just because we're calling it a mind map prompt, this is not associated with the January mind map nor upcoming for February. These are just some opportunities to reflect in the previous month's theme as we transition into the new month. So if you have any questions or concerns, throw those into the chat and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing and being so honest in the chat. I feel like it's definitely one of those. Ambition has been kind of an interesting theme because I feel like we saw so many of the kind of almost limitations to ambition when it came to the definition. The relationship with ambition doesn't usually take into consideration rest, nor does it provide kind of the luxury of just surviving. I feel like, again, ambition to me always felt like a planned component, and if you're just trying to survive, you don't always have the luxury of planning. So I feel like that's where I felt like I found some ambition shortcomings. But with that being said, I still feel like it's definitely adaptable and also can certainly complement other emotions and feelings. I think Alexandra was the one that pointed out that for her, ambition and resilience kind of went hand in hand. So I think it's more of we were able to kind of expand out the idea and thought of ambition and realizing it can be helpful kind of along some lines, but it will certainly change from milestone to milestone, chapter to chapter. So thank you, everyone, for responding. And then if you maybe kind of struggled a little bit with this prompt, you actually have the entire week to deep dive a little bit into it, which I think is what's also great about kind of the mind map questions, is sometimes you don't quite have the inspiration at that moment, but maybe it kind of becomes something, you have the aha moment a little bit later, because you can always come back to kind of this question or idea if you're looking for something to reflect on. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. Now we're going to move into the rose, bud, thorn exercise, which is also a weekly staple. So if you still have your January journal, this is going to be on page 50, rosebud thorn. And for those that are starting in the February journal, the rosebud thorn usually corresponds with the previous week. So because we don't have a previous week for that, you can choose a blank spot or the scratch pad in your February journal. But what I really like about the rosebud thorn is you can certainly use it to look at the kind of the highs, the lows, and everything in between of the week that you had. As always, there's an opportunity to kind of celebrate the things that went well, acknowledge the things that maybe didn't go as planned, and look for other ways that maybe we can start, stop, and continue some of those maybe habits or goals or ideas so that we can continue to move forward. And at the end, so like I feel like it's another one of those because we're at the end of the month, headed into a new one. You can kind of also use it as a road buzz thorn for maybe the month. If you haven't quite tackled the intentions or reflections yet. But we always do the rosebud thorn. So the rose is a highlight, something that went well, something that made you smile, something that made you happy. For me, my rose this past week is I really got to feed all of my hobbies. I got to go see an amazing musical that always makes me happy. Jennifer and I were talking about it earlier before this. I just swoon over it. And then I also got to go to one of my favorite author sessions on Friday as well. So I got to, feed the musical theater habit, the reading habit, as well as my drama class started back up. So I just was so excited to be able to kind of dive into those hobbies. And like I said, it just makes me smile. So I had a good week. And then the bud was an emerging opportunity. I'm working on my MBA application. So that's going to be an emerging opportunity. We'll see what happens there. But the emerging opportunity is something that you could be getting excited about, something that you're looking forward to, something that is kind of on the horizon, but you're not quite sure what to think of it yet. So maybe it could be something that you can kind of propel towards the rose, or maybe it's something you need to prepare for. It could potentially be a thorn. And then the thorn is a challenge, something that didn't go well, something that was maybe a roadblock, speed bump, one of those things. I am kind of battling somewhat of a sore throat. Luckily, it hasn't gone any worse, but it's certainly cramping my style. And then I always use this kind of as a tool of not only are these just kind of answers to questions, but is there a trend to these? Do I struggle finding a rose for a particular week? Maybe because I'm just dwelling in the negative, because I am absolutely a negative dweller. I will sit and stew in my little negative mud pit until I feel better or get over it. So that's kind of what I use, is to see these trends. Did the rose come quickly? Did the thorn come too quickly? And if you have a hard time finding the rose, I always suggest you can always put at the top of the weekly spread under the one thing, something that you did well that day, something that made you happy, something that made you smile, as a way to track and maybe start getting some of those roses to bloom a little quicker. But as always, we are on page 50 in the January journal or a blank spot in the February journal. And you can throw into the chat your rosebud thorn for this past week, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Like I said, this is a wonderful exercise. Not only is it that kind of cathartic release of being able to kind of shout out your celebrations, but also throw out kind of the things maybe you need a little extra support or kind of relieve some of that tension and stress because it's something that's bothering you or something that's negative, kind of in a very much judgment free zone, but just being able to throw it out into the universe and acknowledge that it's there, I think is magical. And as always, like I said, I have found it really helpful to see the trends of how am I feeling, what mindset am I maybe self consciously buried in, which is how quick was did the rose come? How quickly did the thorns come? And then I always, Jennifer always has the best advice that sometimes the rose is that it's a new week. So I feel like if you can't quite come up with something, the rose is always it is a new week. The bud means we get to start anew, and the thorn is we can put the previous week behind us. So again, magical opportunity to kind of see the highs and lows and everything in between because that's what life is. And being able to do it amongst your Sonder fam is always just like kind of that just added little bonus. So thank you everyone for sharing. We're going to move into the weekly planner. And so if you're still working in the January journal, this is page 52 and 53. If you're in your February journal, this is page 26 and 27. And if you are having to go through both because you just need it to match, I'm one of those people. I definitely cover the previous section, the days in February in my January journal with stickers or washi tape. Same thing with when I moved to my February journal. I cover those January days because everything has to be in its little place, because that is the somewhat perfectionist within me, which I know we're breaking up with perfection, but it definitely makes me a little happier. And then as always, if you are new here, we will have examples on the screen, and everyone in the chat will be throwing out their examples and their approaches. I will be providing kind of examples and approaches, but that does not mean that that is the only way to do this. So this is your permission to repurpose at will, design it how you want it, what you need it, what speaks to you. Same thing with if you are new, go to what makes you excited, which are the sections you really want to try, and you can leave blank spaces. You can try and figure out how you want to do something later. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon, and we're here for the long haul. So this stuff isn't going to come easy overnight. It takes practice and repetition, and all the opportunities are there. You just need to give yourself permission to make those changes, or really dig deep and ask yourself, what do you need? How are we going to be successful this week? And how can we build this so that we can be successful this week? So again, we are starting on page 52 in the January journal, page 26 in the February journal, at the top of the page with "This week I want to feel." And so for this, I approach it as, how do I want to feel this time next week? I got a scientific background, so I need a baseline. I need an equilibrium, something that I want to achieve. I need a goal. And so this is where I always come back to when I'm maybe fighting through some of the highs or the lows of my week. At the end of the week, I want to feel blank. For me in particular, I want to feel relentless this end of the week. I still have a lot of stuff going on where I'm just busy and trying to kind of find that balancing act of time, energy, and effort between work and, again, those personal hobbies that I continue to feed. So relentless was what was successful for me last week, of being relentless with my time and energy and effort. But here are other examples here. Some people think of it as, I want to feel more or I want to feel less. We always liken a good alliteration with calm, creative, and centered. Maybe it's you have a word and then you kind of deep dive into either the reflection on it or the definition. Maybe it's multiple words. Maybe it's a phrase. Maybe it is just a sticker. So I'll give you a few minutes to come up with what you want to feel this time next week. You can throw those in the chat. And so this is kind of, as I said, the approach I do to connect all the pieces together. This is how I want to feel this time next week, and we'll go from there. Thank you everyone for sharing. What I do love about this particular section is when you read the chat, how optimistic and hopeful it can all be, because all of these are very inspiring of how we want to feel. So now as we kind of move through the weekly setup, let's always kind of come back to this if you, but at the same time, just because I recommend coming back to it, you can always treat these as kind of individual little sections. But the connection that I then like to make is now I'm going to ask myself, if this is how I want to feel this time next week, how can I help myself feel that way? So taking all the feels and the feelings, we're going to now move into the weekly major three goals. And just because it says major three goals, that means it could be weekly minor three goals. It could just be weekly goals. It could be weekly major one goal, weekly major two goals, weekly major four goals. So these, it's like whose line is it? Whose line is it anyway? Where the rules don't matter and the points don't count. So you can definitely change some of these for whatever you need. But some of the other inspiration that we get is there are definitely some motivational stickers out there. So maybe that is kind of your quote or ambition for that. Maybe you break it down into categories with the professional mind and body, or a mind, body, heart, or a mind, body, family, or a work, family, spirit. Any version of three. And when I talked about the person that wanted to feel calm, centered, and creative, their bottom left example was they wanted a calm mind, strong and centered body, and creative spirit. So that's how they tied the three words of how they wanted to feel into their goals. I also tend to use the weekly major three goals as what are those kind of squishy emotional or mental reminders I need, so that when I'm getting, again, lost in the heat of the week, maybe it's the reminders of breathe, rest, move, some of those things that can just kind of suck me back out of maybe a tedious to-do list or a to-do list, as well as the kind of help me guide and how do I want to feel this time next week. And then the bottom left one, they have the three categories with the mind, body, and soul, and they connected it directly to their weekly to-dos with their bingo board. And then another one with is the kind of alliteration on the frog, fun and fierce. Frog being something that you don't want to do, but you have to do. Fun is something that you want to do. And fierce, maybe that's that added motive or motivation that you need to kind of get through something that you know is coming, and maybe it's something that'll ease a lot of those things. Or maybe you don't want to put your goals here at all. Maybe this is where your morning and evening routine is. I know there are a couple folks that need the lines for the to-do list instead of just the blank squares. So their to-do list and their goals swap sections because hashtag to-do list needs lines. Again, so there are no right or wrong ways to do this. I'm going to give you guys some time to work on your three goals for this week, be major, minor, or maybe one goal, two goal, three goal, four goal, all of the goals, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And don't worry, you'll have a little bit more time to kind of work on this section because we also feel like usually goes hand in hand with the weekly to-dos. So the weekly to-dos, again, still on page 52 in your January journal, page 26 in your February journal. Woo, sorry. So the weekly to-dos, this can be a to-do list or a to-do list. The difference between the to-do and the to-do is that everything is to done, but it's the celebration that you have after the to-do instead of the to-do. And if that is not your kind of jam, you can always use the Eisenhower matrix, which is the do, decide, delegate, and drop or delete. Um, because sometimes there are those weeks that I need a little extra help on the prioritization. So the Eisenhower matrix is certainly something that I jump back and forth. I am usually a to-do list person because I love a good celebration. And then, like I said, I'll jump back and forth between the to-do and the Eisenhower matrix depending on what week I need to accomplish the things. Same thing with, I am also a big fan of the Pomodoro technique, which is the pick a task, set a timer, work on that task until the time is up, take a break, and then come back. And that's how you can kind of tackle your to do or to do list or your bingo board. But these also can be maybe a to don't list, things to not do that week. Maybe it's a weekly to be list. Maybe again, this is not really, you put your to dos somewhere else. So maybe this is where you track like an exercise thing, or maybe this is where just the motivation or kind of reflective thought is. We know people have put mind maps here. Maybe this is where the ambition equals passion plus persistence is that kind of motivational quote to go there. Or is the bingo board, there's that definitely like dopamine hit of a to-do list and a bingo board to kind of tackle the not so fun things. Same thing with the incorporating not only the things to you do, but the appointments, because all those things take up time. So maybe this is where you put the things that are going to require some sort of time. And then, as always, another tool for kind of prioritization is the need, want, hope. So these are the things that need to be done, things that you want to do, and things that you would hope to do. Because I feel like that's where I get a little lost, even in my to-do list, is where are my priorities and how can I add a priority to kind of an arbitrary thing, arbitrary random list of things. So again, no right or right or wrong way to do. So I'll let you work on your to-dos that again can go hand in hand to the weekly goals that get to the how I want to feel this time next week. And we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Loved seeing all the different approaches and kind of the why you choose to do it the way you do. And I do like this particular section because I do feel like this is one of those that I do change often. Because I had a task that just was not getting done and it was getting carried over week to week to week. I was having to change some light bulbs, but I didn't understand how to change the fixtures. They're tricky fixtures. So it was on my to-do list for probably a good month and a half. And so when I switched over from my to-do list and to-do list, I threw in the Eisenhower matrix, and it turns out that that was absolutely something I needed to delegate. So I was lucky enough. I rent, so I put in a maintenance request, and it got fixed that week. So I do sometimes think that this is one of those adaptable sections that depending on what you need to do or what you need to accomplish, or if you find kind of carrying over the same things or a different set of motivation, this is usually the first thing that I go to adjust and change. Because sometimes it's also just looking at something anew, kind of the same list of things. And we know that it's not always going to work in a bingo. It's not always going to work in a list. So the opportunity to kind of jump back and forth between all these tools, as well as the great suggestions that we see in the chat, I think is what makes this really functional in order to, again, accomplish what you need to accomplish so that you meet those major three goals. To feel the way you want to feel this time next week is absolutely key. So we are going to stay on page 52 in the January journal and page 26 in the February journal. And this is the habit and activity section. So this is the weekly section. And so we always get asked, what's the difference between the weekly habit and activity tracker and the monthly habit and activity tracker? There are definitely different approaches to that. My thought on it is that the monthly habit tracker are habits and activities that you want to do every single day of the month. And then when I bring that over, I'll bring probably 3 or 4 over into the weekly spread. And that is where I add the lens of reality. And that's because, for example, I am a creature of habit. So I have a pretty staple 3 habits that I absolutely track every month, every week, therefore every year. And that's read, move, and journal. What I have now kind of adjusted it because it used to be workout. My definition of workout was a very narrow one. So I was finding myself not able to accomplish it and really getting down on myself and unhappy with the lack of progress I was making, when really and truly I needed to expand my definition of it. So it turned into move. And I added in the reality of the things I cannot control. So I cannot control the weather. I melt like the Wicked Witch of the West, so I do not want to be outside if it is bad weather. So I'm able to kind of add that lens to accomplish it so that I maybe do an indoor workout or an idea for those things. Same thing with when I am just busy and I don't have the time, energy, or effort to add in an extra workout. Sometimes it's just that 20-minute walk for my commute to work. And that is the check mark in the move box. So I'm always a big advocate of setting yourself up for success as best you can, but also acknowledging that there are things that you're not going to be able to control. So that is how I approach the monthly versus the weekly. And then I always like to add in something fun for some of those other weekly things. Just, make a new playlist, dance like nobody's watching, or, sing out loud, those type of things, smile, all those type of things, like the get happy, that those things is there. But other people will do it as maybe this is a habit or activity that you want to stop. Maybe that's kind of where you want to track. Maybe it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which again is a good kind of focus tune idea if you want to do something 5 times, 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, 1 time. Maybe you don't really want to even track tangible activities. Maybe this is another place for some of those more squishier reminders, which is the be kind to yourself, acceptance of yourself, get enough sleep, just a friendly reminder of more fresh foods, get outside. And then also, just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to track all 5 things. Maybe it's 2 things, maybe it's 3 things, maybe it's I am on vacation, so there's going to be a sticker over here because I am not tracking any of it. That is absolutely what you can do. And then same thing with, you also have the ability to be a little bit flexible because maybe your habits and activities look different during the week, especially if you're kind of working. And then your weekends are going to be a little bit different. So being able to kind of add and adjust for those type of things. Also, kind of the flexibility is there. Maybe this is where you want to try a new sleeping routine or a new morning routine or a new evening routine. It doesn't always have to be that type of theme. And sometimes it's also good, a reminder to add into your habits activities is to maybe review your monthly trackers or your mood trackers or one of those things. So the opportunity to do that. And then always, again, include something fun, something that you can do. So maybe it's the New York Time puzzles, or maybe it's just sitting and enjoying the silence, those type of things. Or here are some little things worth smiling about. Or if you kind of need to add some other prompts into it, maybe it's I need to list out every day my 5 gratitudes for that day, things to watch out for, things to strive for, as kind of a carryover to deep dive and reinforce some of those journal reflections with the power of pen to paper to kind of include that there. So let us know how you maybe use your habit and activity, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Love seeing all of the additions. And also, again, as just a friendly reminder to everyone as you work through this, not all sections need to be filled out. Not all sections need to be filled out today. This is an opportunity to kind of work through as we adjust and figure out how to do things. And it also, you have absolute permission to give yourself grace. If you come through halfway through this week and realize that you're not able to, tick off any of your habits and activities, instead of looking at it as failure, I always look at it as clearly those were not the priorities this week, and I probably should have been tracking something else. So you can always erase something and start over. And then you can always start anew and make adjustments as necessary. So sometimes it helps to write down, 1 or 2 things in each section and build from there. And at the end of the day, there are also times where it's just not going to work for that week, which I think is a great segue into the second page of the weekly setup, page 53 in the January journal and page 27 in the February journal. I refer to this as the B-side. I'm a music fan, so this is the B-side of those records, where the A-side are the songs that you listen to over and over again. So the first page I use over and over again. The second page I use occasionally, and that's because there are some amazing gems in here and I use them when I need them. But I was just finding it really hard to kind of accomplish all of these from start to finish on a pretty regular basis. And instead of continuing to feel bad about it or triggering it, I realized that it just wasn't something I needed for that week, or that I need for kind of my day-to-day operations in my week to feel the way I want to feel. So again, that's just my perspective. But if you need permission to refer to it as the B-side and use the B-side, this is it. So the meal plan is something that does get repurposed often. It's a great template. So maybe this is where your daily to-dos live. Maybe this is absolutely where your meal plan is, because you are, on a budget, or you have a large family, or a large, dependents that are relying on you. So it can absolutely be used for a meal plan. It can be used for real time tracking things if it's, symptom related, or, if you're on sort of a health journey. But also maybe this is where your appointments are. I know Bailey, one of our other facilitators, uses this for kind of just meetings. I have used this as a wardrobe planner or a packing planner when I go on either work trips or vacations. And it's been fantastic for that, so I don't overpack. Also, if you have, a course that you're taking or classes that you're taking, it can be used as a study guide. But what we're also seeing is this is a really great place to kind of deep dive into some of the reflections. Maybe this is where you write down the affirmations that you get from the app. What I also like is the very elegant transition from the meal plan for just a general meal plan to the meal plan for my soul. Same thing with, you can always write prompts here. And then the how did I show composure today? That person wanted to feel composed this time next week. So it was, how did I show composure today? Someone else in a previous social wanted to show strength and feel powerful. So it was the how did I show strength today? So I feel like it always helps. Another section that does get repurposed often as well is the mind body health plan. This can definitely go hand in hand with the meal plan. I know there are folks that maybe just plan for dinner. So this is where their dinner meal plans live. But it's also, maybe it's the alliteration of, this is where you're doing something for your mind, your body, or your health, or maybe your mind, spirit, and your health. And so it's a motivation Monday, talk it out Tuesday, walking Wednesday. Or maybe it's a combination of, this is how I feel today, so this is what I need for my mind, body, and health. Maybe this is also where you put some journal prompts. I have also tracked my roses for the day, or the celebrate the wins that you'll see. There's another bingo section about it. Or maybe this is also, again, those stickers come in so handy. So you can certainly put that there. You can also track maybe the 7 types of rest, or focus on the 7 different types of rest. But also maybe this is just where your chore kind of chart lives. But again, if none of those work for you, maybe it's the how did I care for myself today, or maybe you just want to completely revamp this entire section for, here's where my routine is going to be, or this is maybe where my reading log is. So I'm going to give you some opportunities to work on the mind, body, health plan, as well as the meal plan, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Love the adaptability for sure of this page. So certainly like seeing all of the repurposing. And then as we close out, the shopping list, obviously another section that certainly can get repurposed. Maybe that's where your daily rituals are, a boring stuff bingo, celebrating the wins. Maybe this is where you kind of keep some self-care reminders or a prayer list. And then same thing with the important, maybe positive self-talk bingo, a read, watch, and reflect, or a don't buy and buy section, and then the opportunity to kind of repurpose these as well. And then at the very bottom of that page with the I am loving, this is certainly an opportunity to just throw out those things that are making you happy. Another place for some of those roses. Right now, I am loving the fact that if you Google insert animal name or type, so in this particular one, it was a fish, and put aspirations, you get such amazing, happy little animal photos with quotes. So that's become the thing that I am loving when I just need a little bit of a pick-me-up. It's a quick little, a goldfish that wishes it was a shark, or the penguin that wants to move in the direction of the dreams, even if it is just a little one. So all those things have been making me happy recently. And as always, we love seeing your weekly planners in the Silk and Sonder app, especially if you're new. There's usually a bit of a flurry in the app after the weekly social setups, so that you can certainly see some of those examples. And then as always, we appreciate that if you have the new survey, please respond to that, especially if there are different socials you want to see, different times, different dates. Make sure you include your zone, because I do know that we jump back and forth with the schedules when it comes to like Sunday, for example. So if you have really strong thoughts and opinions on when those schedules are, definitely include them in the survey. And then as always, if you show up late, leave early, or miss a social, or there isn't one any there as well, you can use our YouTube link that is in there. As always, you will not have the chat, but you will have the facilitator and the slides. And then I will not only include the link to my Spotify playlist for this particular social, but I also save all of the playlists that I create for the socials. So you'll be able to have those there. Again, thank you everyone for joining us on this Monday morning. You guys are going to have a fantastic week, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you everyone for sharing, and we hope to see you again. Have a fantastic Monday, a fantastic rest of the week. Bye.
Listen to the wind roar, see the mighty eagles soar, feel the sun on your face, trust that you will find your way. And when the night is cold and dark, know that you have fire in your heart. Be strong, be brave, let courage lead the way. Stand tall and know who you are. Wild heart, wild soul, roam free to the unknown. And know that you have everything you need to be fearless. Fearless. A river runs through your veins. The trees and mountains call your name. The moon and stars watch over you, guiding your way back home to dream the night away. And when the storm clouds fill the sky, listen to the thunder inside.